workers are being brought in without any commitment to self-isolating for 14 days.
Tonight, Manitoba First Nations call for construction to be halted at the Keeyask Dam.
It's a great way to stay connected with culture, especially right now when we aren't able to do ceremony.
And a task force in Calgary works to help the city's most vulnerable during the pandemic. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. We begin tonight in Nova Scotia in the wake of Canada's largest mass shooting. Many have been asking whether emergency alerts could have saved lives. On Sunday, the RCMP used Twitter to alert the public that an active shooter was on the loose. Nova Scotia Premier Stephen McNeil said yesterday, that the province was on standby to issue the alert, but never got the actual go-ahead from the RCMP. Today, RCMP spokesperson Jennifer Clark said the RCMP was actually about to issue that alert. Meanwhile, security footage from a business on Millbrook First Nation just outside of Truro appears to show the killer in last weekend's massacre stopping in the Mi'kmaq community towards the end of his murder spree. In the video, a man believed to be 51-year-old Gabriel Wortman pulls up in front of the security camera in what looks like a marked police RCMP cruiser. He gets out, changes into a yellow vest, climbs back into the vehicle, and drives away. It's not known how long he was in Millbrook or if he had any interactions with residents. Facing criticism over the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit and those falling through the cracks, today the federal government responded with help for post-secondary students. Jimmy Pashagumskum reports.
Justin Trudeau announced 76,000 more student summer jobs this year. In all, the Prime Minister promised $9 billion to post-secondary students. Of that money, $75 million is earmarked for Indigenous students.
In many cases, post-secondary students' school year ends or term ends now at around the end of April, and normally at the beginning of May they'd be looking for summer jobs. This is something that obviously is not going to happen the same way or as easily this year, and that's why we're moving forward with the Canada Emergency Student Benefit.
The benefit will pay $1,250 a month from May to August for full-time students and recent graduates, and $1,750 for students with dependents and those with disabilities. Those graduating high school and moving on to college or university in the fall will qualify. At the daily COVID committee briefing, Employment Minister Carla Qualtrough said provisions will also include money to extend scholarships, grants, and internships.
In addition, we will expand eligibility for the Canada Student Loans Program for September. We will also double the value of Canada Student Grants and increase the cap on Canada Student Loans from $210 to $350 per week of study.
Students can also volunteer in critical service sectors this summer and receive between $1,000 and $5,000, depending on how much they volunteer. Jamie Pashagumskum, APTN National News, Ottawa.
During a press briefing on the massacre in Nova Scotia, Public Safety Minister Bill Blair said, quote, hundreds of federal inmates are being released due to COVID-19 concerns, but prison advocates say they're now grappling with more questions than answers. Lindsay Richardson explains.
It wasn't what he came to discuss, but speaking Monday, Blair touched on something prison advocates across Canada have waited weeks to hear.
Both Corrections Canada and our parole board have been working diligently for individuals who are eligible to be released and do not represent a significant threat to public safety.
Blair's recent media absence, subject of a trending hashtag, came after he requested a review of exceptional options, even early release for vulnerable federal inmates.
Literally hundreds of people have in fact been placed back in the community, but that's done in a very careful and supervised way because public safety is our first priority.
Blair says the parole board received hundreds of applications for early release, some already processed and approved, but he did not offer a specific number or additional information about the releases.
I can assure Canadians that we have been taking a number of very significant steps to ensure the health and safety of the inmate population.
CSC says an average of 600 offenders are released every month through parole, statutory release, and expiration of sentence. In March 2020, 626 inmates were released, just 26 more than average, an inconsistency noted by the opposition.
The numbers of people released in the last month are similar to the year before, and with normal fluctuations, so we're not seeing that.
CSC did not respond to questions about COVID-related cases by deadline.
He is a very, very busy guy.
During Wednesday's COVID-19 presser, Chrystia Freeland rebuffed questions about Blair's perceived absence and whether the government is withholding information about prisons. She says they're working closely with officials in BC, where 70 people became infected with COVID-19 during an outbreak at the Mission Correction Centre. One person died. On the East Coast, in Quebec, more than half of the inmates serving at the Joliette Institution for Women have COVID-19. Harris says improving the prison situation may require additional oversight.
Prisoners are worried across the country, and I don't think enough attention is being paid to this. We're going so far as to call for a task force, perhaps headed by a federal court judge, to start looking at whether or not proper priority is being given to identifying potential prisoners who may be able to be released safely into the community.
With human life on the line, advocates say they want proof, not assurances. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
We want to hear what you think about releasing low-risk inmates. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send us your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca, and you can find us on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. As much of Canada remains in lockdown, many resource projects continue to operate despite objections from surrounding communities. In northern Manitoba, hundreds of employees continue to work at the Keeyask Generating Station project. Brittany Hobson reports.
First Nations in Manitoba are calling for the halt of construction at the Keeyask Generating Station during the pandemic. The multi-billion-dollar Manitoba Hydro project has been operating with a scaled-back crew since last month. But NDP MP Nikki Ashton is concerned new protocols will not protect workers or nearby communities.
We need to be stepping up our effort, and that means making sure that workers at Keeyask are safe right now. And it also means if Keeyask cannot operate without contractors coming in and out, then we have to be looking and talking about a temporary shutdown, as many First Nations and the partner First Nations have already raised.
The Crown Corporation operates a construction camp which houses 700 employees. Hydro says it has taken several initiatives to prevent the spread, including longer work rotations, adding health staff, and phone screenings prior to entering the camp. However, Ashton says reports of new staff arriving are concerning.
These workers are being brought in without any commitment to self-isolating for 14 days. There's reference to them following similar protocols to healthcare workers who are exempt, except they're not healthcare workers. And they're coming in to work in a camp where everybody lives together. So a very risky situation, at the best of times, never mind when we're dealing with a pandemic.
Hydro says protocols to allow staff to return to camp have been approved by the Northern Health Authority. During Wednesday's daily briefing, the province's top public health officer, Dr. Brent Rusin, told reporters he was confident in the measures Manitoba Hydro has implemented.
So we've looked at these sites. We've looked at them with a number of our medical officer health. We looked at them with public health inspectors, and the process that's in place we feel is adequate to prevent the risk, and so we'll keep monitoring the situation as it goes.
APTN asked Hydro what it would take to halt construction. In a statement, they responded, "We won't speculate on that." Suffice it to say, there have been no cases of COVID-19 at the Keeyask facility, thanks to the measures we have put in place to prevent the spread of the virus at site and to surrounding communities. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We need to take a quick break, but coming up, what the oil crash means to Alberta First Nations and the oil sands. First, here's a look at tomorrow's weather. Starting off on the East Coast, we've got 4 and sunshine for Fredericton, 4 and rain for Halifax. Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 6 degrees, and cloud. Kuujjuaq, snow and -1. Val-d'Or is sunshine and 2 degrees, 7 and sunny for Montreal. North Bay is sunshine and 6, mostly sunny in Sault Ste. Marie, and 4 degrees there. So Lookout is cloudy and 6 degrees. We'll get some snow up in Big Trout Lake and 2 degrees. 8 degrees and snow for Thompson, -2 and snow for Churchill. Gimli is sunshine and 14 degrees, sunny skies for Dauphin and 15. Swift Current will be cloudy and 17 degrees tomorrow, 15 and cloud for Saskatoon. Sunshine up in Uranium City, 3 degrees there, 13 and sunshine for Meadow Lake. Welcome back. With oil prices in the oil sands going to negative numbers, First Nations in the area are going to feel the pinch as APTN's Chris Stewart reports layoffs and budget cuts will be a way of life for the foreseeable future.
Jim Boucher was a longtime chief of the Fort McKay First Nation, a former chief of Treaty 8. He is also a business owner. He says the recent fall of Western Canadian oil prices into negative territory will lead to big layoffs for workers, many of who are Indigenous, working for Indigenous-owned companies.
It's going to happen for a while, and I think things are going to get tough, and a lot of people are going to be put out of work. I think, the companies have to really reduce their operating costs. They got to think long-term rather than short-term, and we have to stay in the game.
Vern Janvier is the chief of Chipewyan Prairie First Nation. He says oil revenues for his nation have gone down considerably since the price of oil started declining years ago.
We've been seeing the oil market probably since 2013 slowly degrading. The amount of work, the business, it's slowly going down. We used to do $200 million worth of work a year. We're probably down to about 40 million right now.
Lower revenues mean less jobs and less money for the band to operate. He says they have been lowering the nation's budget since the decline began.
5 years ago, I think our budget was 15 million a year. We're down to 7 million now, so we're going to cut that probably down to about 5.5 million now, right?
Boucher says companies will go under. Cutting the workforce is the only way for business to make it.
There will be survival, but it's not going to be the same as what it was, say, 2018 or 2019. Things are going to change very dramatically, and it's survival mode right now, and the healthy will survive.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
The Northwest Territories COVID-19 restrictions have some residents asking how long it'll be before the territory can go back to normal. The border has been shut down for a month and they've had no community spread of the virus. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs has this update on how the new normal may look and what the territory plans to do next.
It will be at least 4 to 6 weeks until the Northwest Territories eases up on its COVID-19 rules. That's according to Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Cami Condola, who says she'll be releasing an exit strategy for rules next week. The new normal will look something like being able to go to campgrounds or get a haircut, but mass gatherings will still be banned for quite some time. But the territory that implemented some of the most aggressive measures early on may be the first to relax them. Dr. Cami Condola says even though the territories is doing well, they need to be concerned with waves of pandemic hitting the rest of the country. She plans to tighten border security for essential workers who were previously exempt from the self-isolation after crossing into the NWT. Those would include transportation of supply workers, healthcare, mining, and construction, to name a few. To date, the territory is the only place in Canada to have all cases of COVID-19 fully recovered. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Thanks for that, Charlotte. So far, the Yukon Territory has 11 confirmed cases of COVID-19. Out of those, 8 have fully recovered at home. Yukon's chief medical officer spoke with Chris McIntyre about how taking early measures have allowed his office to remain optimistic during this pandemic.
Recently, a group of Yukoners got together to surprise the Yukon's chief medical officer with a special tribute. Since the beginning of this pandemic, Dr. Brendan Hanley has been responsible for keeping Yukoners up to date. Hanley believes that in the fight against COVID-19, the Yukon is in a good place.
I'm cautiously optimistic that we have a good chance of staying where we are if we keep the fundamentals in place.
The territory was one of the last to be hit by COVID-19. Hanley attributes that to having the advantage of learning about social and border measures implemented abroad.
We increasingly were able to document community spread in even from the very early times in the provinces where community spread appeared to be beginning and then became more and more evident, and so that gave us evidence that the risk profile was changing from purely associated with international travel to being now associated increasingly with domestic travel.
The numbers of confirmed cases in Yukon have remained low. Hanley says if this pattern continues, then the next steps could be to start removing restrictions rather than making more.
Now that we are staying ahead of the curve and continuing to try to do so, and if we can adhere to all of the physical distancing and maintain that, then how can we look at what can we do more of in terms of encouraging the ability to have, say, recreational facilities reopen, summer activities? What are the parts that we can relax? How can we maybe help some businesses?
So far, all of the Yukon's COVID cases have been reported in Whitehorse, with the exception of one from a smaller community in the territory. And if that trend continues, Hanley is optimistic life for Yukoners might soon be returning to normal.
I think if we work together, we'll get through this together and we'll be in a better place at the other end.
Chris McIntyre, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Earlier today on In Focus, we heard from two families with kids in child welfare custody and their fight to keep in contact with them during this pandemic. And we heard from a pediatrician turned politician who spent the past 20 years advocating for families battling the child welfare system. He shared his thoughts on how to fix this broken system in an interview that was recorded before the COVID lockdown.
There should be more accountability in terms of CFS agencies, more ability to review things quickly, instead of taking months and months and months and tying things up in the legal system. We need to have more legal aid lawyers who are prepared to stand up and vigorously defend families. I think that's also important.
So
I mean, people don't adequately understand the trauma to the kids and to the family when you take a child away. People don't recognize that when a mother is pregnant and having a child and she starts breastfeeding, there is a tremendous incentive to look after that child and do it well. And if we can help that mother, then we've got a positive result. If we take that child away, you blow the whole thing up.
And that is from a doctor. You can watch the full episode again right here on APTN on Friday at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. It's time for us to take another break, but still ahead, a big nomination for an Indigenous playwright. And here's the rest of tomorrow's weather forecast. To northern Alberta, we've got 3 degrees and snow for Fort Chip, 9 and rain for Fort McMurray, 15 and sunshine for Edmonton and Medicine Hat, 16 and cloud for Lethbridge, Tofino 12 with a mix of sun and cloud, 15 and rain for Vancouver, Sandspit 11 with a mix of sun and clouds, mix of sun and clouds in Fort Nelson at 14 degrees, 5 and snow for Dawson City, 8 for Beaver Creek, -6 and snow for Norman, Wells, Wauchee, sunshine and -4. Inuvik, -13, mostly sunny skies. Tuktoyaktukto, -13 and snow. Chesterfield is going to snow and -11. Repulse Bay, snow and -12. Igloolik, mostly sunny and -15. Same with Resolute. Cape Dorset, -12 with mostly sunny skies. Welcome back. A police officer in Northern Ontario is helping keep elders safe during the COVID-19 pandemic with a special kind of fundraiser. Constable Christina Bombay of Pekanjicum Police Service has ordered T-shirts that read, quote, Pekanjicum versus COVID-19. and is selling them online and in the community for $25. Bombay says she's raised over $800 so far and will use the money to buy essential supplies like water for elders in the community.
Community members have been buying. A lot of my coworkers have been buying, like fellow officers, and not only here at the detachment, but from my community back home. They do have running water in most of the homes, but just being an elder, I thought it would just be easy to have, bottled water in the home as opposed to having to go out and fill up the water jugs and or make their way to the northern store.
Grassroots organizations in Calgary have come together to offer support for the city's most vulnerable during this pandemic. Tamara Pimentel spoke with a local friendship centre that started it all.
The Aboriginal Friendship Centre in Calgary may have closed its doors, but it's still in operation. The centre created a task force, a collection of agencies to fill a gap in services to the most vulnerable people in the city.
We're seeing a lot of folks that, are reaching out for help, and we're really happy to be a part of the collective that is actively supporting the community.
Melissa Roy of the Friendship Centre says the COVID-19 pandemic has increased food insecurity and mental health issues. The group assists elders, families with low income, and the homeless. So far, workers have delivered hundreds of customized care packages and offer emotional support over the phone. An elder is also available to take calls and give advice.
It's a great way to stay connected with culture, especially right now when we aren't able to do ceremony.
Last month, the Alberta government announced it will spend $30 million to support the homeless, support that Roy says doesn't help every individual.
So for one person, you cannot have the same healing plan for the next 20 and next 100, right? There definitely needs to be an increase in supports for Indigenous urban people. Seeing the pandemic and how happy and grateful people are and well is good. It's a change and it's nice. It's a nice change. You don't always get a thank you as a frontline staff.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Calgary.
Curve Lake First Nation playwright Drew Hayden Taylor's work, Cottagers and Indians, is getting some recognition. It's been longlisted for the $15,000 Stephen Leacock Medal for Humor. The comical story is based on true events that occurred in Ontario when cottagers protested wild rice harvesting by Anishinaabe people. Taylor responded to the award nomination today from Toronto.
I've had half of the plays being produced this summer canceled, knocking on wood that something might happen from it. So it has been somewhat problematic. This lovely little nugget coming out of nowhere has been just sort of my little ray of sunshine in this gloom of a pandemic. So I got my fingers, toes, and kidneys crossed that I will make the short list come the 1st of May, and then who knows what happens afterwards.
Well, that is your news for this Wednesday. Stay up to date with the very latest on COVID-19 by visiting our special page, aptnnews.ca/COVID. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night. Stay safe and happy Earth Day. It's the 50th.